this is Luca and welcome to another Samplesound music production tutorial. In this video, we will focus on LFOs and how to use them to add variation and complexity to your music. When it comes to techno and loop-based music in general, it is crucial to have variation, to build an evolving and organic sound. Loops are by definition repetitive, and that's cool, but if you don't have the right amount of variation over time, they just become boring. So today we will see how to use LFOs, both inside and outside synthesizers, to achieve this complexity. LFO stands for Low Frequency Oscillator. An oscillator is a device able to produce a continuous cyclic waveform at different speeds or frequencies. Low frequency means that the produced frequencies are below the human hearing, which is around 30 Hz. These low waves can be used to modulate or change the value of parameters in a synthesizer, like the filter cutoff. Or the volume, also known as tremolo effect. Or the pitch, also known as vibrato effect. This is pretty standard, and I'm sure you have heard about this before. What is less common is using LFOs in samplers to add variation to rhythmic patterns. Let's have a look. We have this hi-hat loop. It is very static and robotic, and all the notes are the same. Now, let's go to the controls page of the sampler and switch on the LFO. We set the shape to sample and hold, which means a random value is selected at a given rate. Then we assign the LFO to the volume, and what we get is a very nice alternative to velocity modulation. It is very important to have this R button on. This is the retrigger function, which resets the start of the LFO every time a new note is received. So with the sample and hold shape, this means that every single note is played at a random, different volume. We can also assign the same LFO to the filter cutoff, which means that the filter will move its position at every note. Or to the pitch, to get some weird effects. Just make sure here that the amount of modulation is quite low. This is a really nice trick to add some random variation to hi-hats and percussions. But what about if I want to modulate a parameter that is not available in the LFO's destinations, like the volume decay? Actually, what about if I want to modulate any parameter in a live set? Well, luckily, there is Max for Live. If you have Live 11, there is a device in the audio effects simply called LFO. If you have a previous version, you will find the same in the Max for Live category. This device allows you to assign a low-frequency modulation to any parameter available in your live set. Like a standard LFO, we can select the waveform. We choose random here. Then we have the rate, which is the speed of the LFO, and its value can either be left in Hertz or synchronized to the song BPM. There is no automatic retrigger function here, so we will synchronize the rate in 16ths and assign it with this map button to the volume decay of the sampler. Then we set the sustain to minimum, and here we go. Every note has a different envelope. We can also adjust the range of the modulation with this minimum and maximum percentage. This technique can also be applied to audio loops. Here we have a low-end percussive loop. We can put some audio effects on it, like the vocoder, and then the LFO. By the way, this device doesn't affect the input in any way, so you can put it anywhere in the chain. We map the LFO to the dry-wet of the vocoder. Then select a sawtooth down waveform, and synchronize the rate. If we use less common rate values like 3/8, 1/3, 5/16, then we can achieve some nice polyrhythmic effects, which are very useful especially in minimal techno, or techno in general. Here we have a pattern in 16th notes. But then, on top of it, we have a 5/16 rhythmic effect. So this can be considered a polyrhythm. We can now add some smooth to get a nice rounded shape and avoid those glitches. And we can also add some jitter to introduce some randomness in the LFO signal. Another very good feature of Ableton's LFO is that it can be assigned to multiple destinations. For example, we can map the LFO also to the formant parameter, then individually adjust its minimum and maximum range. We can map many other parameters. I mean, the possibilities are really endless here. Let's do the same thing, but with Ableton's Autofilter. We have this synth sound, which again is quite static. So we drag the Autofilter on this channel, and we see that this effect has a built-in LFO here on the right. So we close the low-pass filter cutoff, we select sawtooth down, increase the amount of modulation from the LFO to the cutoff, then switch from hertz to synchronized rate, and select a triplet rate value like 1/3 or 1/6. You can hear that it's definitely adding another layer of rhythm to the sound. But LFOs don't always have to be about fast, intense, rhythmic modulation. They can also create a very slow and soft variation to make the sound evolve in a more subtle way. Plus, different modulations can be added to the same sound to get a more interesting result. So, we add another autofilter to the same track, sine waveform, very low rate value like 0.05 Hz, or 6 or 8 bars. You can hear that we now have this very slow movement. The sound gets darker, then brighter over time, and this really adds something to the entire song. Another cool idea is to use this kind of slow modulations to modulate other LFOs. Like, if we go back to that hi-hat channel, we can add another sine LFO with a very slow rate, then map it to the offset of the first LFO, which means that now the modulation signal itself will slowly change, moving from high random values to low random values. Obviously, Ableton's LFO is not the only device that we can use for this purpose. In the Max for Live world, there's loads of other options, like very complex LFOs with all sorts of features and stuff. I will just quickly mention one device that I really like, and it's called LFO with the H by K Devices. It basically adds a lot of advanced features to Ableton's LFO, especially a swing function, which is really cool. One problem increase the swing value, one period of the waveform gets shorter, while the other gets longer. We add some swing, something that is not possible with classic LFOs. Gets shorter every other repetition, which is rhythmically super interesting. In this case, I have applied the modulation to the reverb diffusion parameter to get some kind of side-chaining effect. But I can also use it on the sides parameter to get some weird sci-fi noise. There is also a bend parameter to curve the shape of the signal. And also this button, which enables you to quantize the waveform, so you can get a steppy modulation rather than a continuous one. Again, there's plenty of Max for Live developers out there, so you can just go have a look and you will find so many alternatives, even for free sometimes. So we have come to the end of today's video, where we had a look at how to make your sound more complex, more organic, more evolving by using LFOs in Ableton Live. We have analyzed different types of LFOs with the common goal of adding variation to our music, something that is usually quite hard to manage when using MIDI or pre-made loops. We have learned how to think outside the box when it comes to LFO modulation, by using sample and hold or random waveforms, by applying it to unusual parameters thanks to Max for Live, by playing with polyrhythms or using very slow modulation, multiple LFOs on the same channel, and even using an LFO to modulate another LFO. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.